Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben. This is Diego Sanchez. Randy Couture.
Alistair Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 190. It's Wednesday, the 26th of June. Dennis Shkradov here with Kasper Ozolowski with another massive episode of Submission Radio coming into your ears. That's not a great choice of wording, but we've got a great episode for all the fans, Cas.
Well, it's recorded now, so
we just lost our Christian listenership.
That's right.
It wasn't on purpose. We got a great episode, crazy lineup. Can't wait to unleash this episode.
If you didn't want us coming in your ears, then why are you listening to the show in the first place? You know what you signed up for.
If you want to check us out on YouTube, we can also come at your faces through the screen with the video. See it in video.
First row gets wet. Anyway, we got a sexy lineup this week. Damn, we really got a sexy lineup. You really outdid yourself. This week, Dennis, we got Luke Rockhold, not at the LA Media Day. Why? Because he's on Submission Radio. You don't need to be at the LA Media Day. We're on Submission Radio. No, in all honesty, we have no idea why he wasn't at the LA Media Day, but we will attempt to find out when we speak to Luke Rockhold, who fights Jan Blachowicz next week at UFC 239. Also, Demetrious Johnson returned to the program after a very, very, very long Submission Radio layoff, very long Submission Radio hiatus. Coming back to the program, he's got a big fight coming up at One Championship, so we thought, you know what, it's a perfect time to get him back on the program. Also got to ask him about Cejudo, TJ Dillashaw, and a bunch of things. Jimmy Crute himself, the Brute. You know, Dana White, have you heard of Jimmy Crute? Everybody remembers that infamous moment from the UFC 234 press conference. He's on the program. He's fighting Misha Serkinov at UFC Vancouver. A pretty loose guy. The slogan for him is "Not here to fuck spiders." Hashtag not here to fuck spiders. Do you know what that means? Well, if you're an Aussie, you probably do know. If you're around the other parts of the world, maybe you don't know. So stick around, find out. Something to do with a Mike Tyson face tattoo when he was in Bali. Going to talk about all that stuff and more with Jimmy Crute. Also, in a lot of ways, the man of the hour, Colby Covington, who takes on Robbie Lawler now at UFC Newark. Also going to be stopping by Submission Radio before he fights Robbie Lawler. So we're going to be talking to Colby. Why did he take the fight? What's going on with this Usman fight? Why did that not materialize? How's his relationship with Dana White? Obviously, Ben Askren saying a whole bunch of things, hurling a whole bunch of things his way. Ben Askren fighting his good friend Jorge Masvidal next week, UFC 239. So there's a lot to speak to Colby Covington about. Also, Sean Sheehan jumping on the program to make sense of this past week and this current week in MMA is going to give us a cheeky preview for Ngannou and JDS this weekend at UFC on ESPN3. So yeah, man, like you said, it's a sexy show. Jimmy Crute, Demetrious Johnson, Luke Rockhold, Colby Covington, Sean Sheehan. I'm reading the names, and I still almost can't believe it.
Yeah, unbelievable. Can't wait to get into this program. Thank you so much for all of you. We got a lot of great comments on the episode last week, a lot of complimentary things. We'll read them all ourselves. And just a reminder, you can message us personally on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Everything is open. We love reading your messages. A quick reminder for everybody at home, Cass, especially locally in Australia, you can buy the new, this is a little bit off topic, but you can buy the new beanie for brain cancer at the markhughesfoundation.com.au. They just released the new designs. I'm wearing the old one right now. Super warm, great for winter, $25, and it goes towards really helping an important cause for me and for a lot of other people. Jump on, grab your beanie, look fashionable, and if you grab your beanie and you check it up on Twitter and tag us, we'll give you a retweet. Just great to support a fantastic local foundation. But with that, Cass,
just quickly, I was going to say, anyone who knows what you've been through the last few weeks and the last 6 months knows that that's an important cause for you. You mentioned the comments, just quickly, people saying that I look like I live in a toaster. Got eczema. Saying the tan is terrible. Listen, I got some eczema under my eyes. The doctor gave me some cream and it's slowly going away. But I appreciate your concerns, all right? So, you know, in a few weeks, it'll probably be gone. And if not, it's because the eczema has eaten me away and I'm dead. So either way, it's a win-win situation.
And just quickly, before we jump into it, because we do have our first guest on the line, I'm just going to speed review a couple of movies. I was actually at the preview screening for this Man in Black International. Man, that was a piece of garbage. One, Timothy Johnson mustache. And then I saw Toy Story 4. Man, what a great movie. Definitely recommend it to all the adults out there. It went quick, great. Disney just know what they're doing, and that's 4 Timothy Johnson mustaches out of 5. Make sure to take your kids to the cinemas and see that one. But
thanks for the invite, man. Appreciate it.
Listen, I like to watch animated movies by myself. Makes me feel like less of a creep. But anyway, without further ado, we have our first guest on the line, and Cass, I believe you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys. Our next guest is set to take on Misha Serkinov at UFC Vancouver on September 16th. He is not here to fuck spiders. And more importantly, have you heard of Jimmy Crute? The brute himself, Jimmy Crute. Welcome to Submission Radio. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm pumped for this fight. We're just about to get some training done now, but I'm very excited and I'm happy for this opportunity.
And of course, you're coming to us from the Resilience Training Center, home of the original gangster himself, Dan Kelly. So it's exciting to see you on the program. Now, let's talk about the Not Here to Fuck Spiders World Tour, because it's continuing, but a lot of people in the States and Canada may not be familiar with the term. It's a very Aussie term. So for those who don't know, Jimmy, what does it mean when you say not here to fuck spiders? Because we don't want to offend Anderson Silva. We need to be clear.
So it basically means we're not here to fuck around and we're here to get the job done. It's just something that Australians say. Not all Australians. Most Australians don't even like it, but I don't give a fuck.
You say it, Jimmy, we say it. I feel like that's all that really counts. I feel like all the listeners as well. But, between your world tour, the Not Here to Fuck Spiders tour, and Israel Adesanya's Good Cunt t-shirts, what do you think about sort of Australasians injecting their own brand of humor, into the mix? I feel like, we're a lot less censored than other parts of the world.
Yeah, I think we can take the piss out of everything. So a lot of people get offended real easy. A lot of Australians get offended real easy. A lot of just people in general get offended real easy. So I always think if you get offended by what I say, it's your fault, not mine.
Well, are you expecting some funny looks from Canada when you start talking about the Not Here to Fuck Spiders World Tour? Canadians are very nice people, Jimmy. They might be shocked to hear this.
I reckon even if they don't get it, they'll just be like, oh, yeah, that's cool.
100% correct. It's going to be a hilarious meeting. Yeah, go on. What were we going to say?
As I said, I'm there to do a job at the end of the day. Like, all the banter and whatever can come with it. But at the end of the day, on the 14th of September, I'm going to be locked in a cage with someone and I'm going to be trying to knock them out cold. So it doesn't matter what I say, doesn't matter what anyone says. We're here to fight.
100%. I was going to say, overall, you're a really young guy. You're 23 years old. You're on a 2-fight win streak in the UFC, 3 if you count the Dana White Contender Series. Just wondering, how has your life changed since coming to the UFC? And hey, there's Dan Kelly himself. Look at that. Cameo from Dan. Big man Dan. Love Dan Kelly.
That's my dad.
Just wondering, how has your life changed, Jimmy, since coming to the UFC and since UFC 234 back in February?
It's changed quite drastically, but at the same time, it's still the same. I still work the same as I did before. I just don't have to work a full-time job. I'm able to just focus everything on training and recovery. I get some time to see my family. I get some time to hang out with my mates like I never used to be able to do that. All in all, I still sleep at the gym up there.
Really? You really do?
Yeah. And not much has changed apart from just being able to train full time, and I'm still the same person.
So just to clarify, you said you still have to work. So do you still have like a part-time or casual job? And what is that job, or what was that job?
I still work the same, so I still have the same work ethic.
Yeah.
I don't work a job anymore, thank God.
Thank God.
Of course, one of the iconic moments, Jimmy, was the moment from the UFC 234 press conference where Dana White said, "Have you heard of Jimmy Crute?" You even put a funny picture on Instagram of Dana White looking at you like a proud father. I mean, what's your relationship like with Dana these days? He really seems to be behind you.
I've only met him for 3 or 4 times, but man, he's such a cool guy. Every time I meet him, he's the same old. He's the same as what he is in front of the cameras, and I really respect that. I don't like people that act differently around different situations. So, to me, he's got all my respect I can give, and this sport wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be making a living off this sport if it wasn't for Dana White.
Did you speak to him after your win at UFC 234? I feel like he's a guy who would be a fan of the Not Here to Fuck Spiders World Tour.
Probably. Maybe if I got to explain to him. I don't even know if I got to speak to him after. Sort of avoided him because I know what he would have said.
Oh,
what do you
mean?
Away.
What's that? Sorry?
Should have jumped on Sam Alvey straight away and not tried to walk off.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, it was still an iconic moment. Now, tell us about this Misha Serkinov fight. How did it come together, and what do you think of him as your next opponent? Because obviously he's a very tough test. Are you happy with him as your next test? It seems like you've been dying for a big fight.
I'm happy with anyone in the top 15. And, Misha Serkinov's a dangerous fight, not only because he's really good, but because he's a bit underrated. People see his last however many fights, and he's not had the best performances of recent times, but he's much better than his record suggests. Even in the fights that apart from the Johnny Walker fight where he never got to get in a groove, even in the fights that he's lost, he's had success on the feet. He's been able to push guys back. So he's a gamer, and he always comes to fight. He's just been a little bit unlucky at times. But as I've always said, I'm not here to pick easy fights or fights that I'm supposed to win. I'm here to fight the best guys off the bat, and Misha Serkinov's the best guy available. So I was the first to put my hand up for it.
I'm wondering, are you happy when, if traditionally the UFC, when they like someone, they will often throw them really, really hard fights, kind of back to back to back. Is that kind of what you're after? You don't mind that, or is it sort of like you're as far as the title shot and things like that somewhere down the line? Are you just happy with sort of however long it takes so that you can just, keep focusing on you and keep growing as a fighter?
Hey, I'm not here to fuck spiders, brother. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I want to get in. I want to make a mess of everything and get the hell out of here.
Well, speaking of making a mess of everything, Misha's last 3 losses have been first-round KOs. You're known for your power and ability to finish. Do you feel like that plays in your favor going into this fight?
I don't know. I think you can buy into that, or you can look at the fact that he's been caught. As I said, he's a much better fighter than his recent record suggests. I think I'm going to be able to catch him early, but doesn't mean it's going to happen. I'm going to be aiming to catch him early, but get one thing straight: I'm going to be ready to go, knock him out in a minute, or go the full 15. I'm not going to half-ass anything. I'm going to be ready for 15 minutes of war. I'm going to be ready to knock him out quick.
I was going to say, other than the Dana White Contender Series fight, all of your fights have been in Australia. How different is it fighting in North America compared to at home?
I love the hotel life, so it's pretty cool. I think we go out 10 days early, and then I just get to chill in a hotel. So I've got no stress. I get up. If I do a session, I go chill by the pool. I get a massage, get my weight down. That's all I have to worry about. We're here. I've got every other stress that comes with being at home. So I don't know. Obviously, I've only ever experienced it once, but the Vegas fight was the most stress-free week of my life when I was staying in Vegas at the hotel.
And obviously you're a hometown favorite here, and when you get in the octagon, the place just goes absolutely bananas. But what's it going to be like going to Canada into his backyard and sort of being the villain? I don't know if the Canadians are really like the Brazilians. They're not going to be trying to threaten your life in the hotel or anything, but you're not going to sort of get the same cheers that you did back home.
I wanted something like that. I wanted to go to someone's home country and take them out. I think that's a pretty cool thing. All these guys don't want to come here and fight me, so I'm going to go after them. And that's just the way it is. I expect to get booed, maybe. I'm just going to draw off it. I don't really care. I've never been in this for the glory or whatever. I'm in this because I like to fight. So.
100%. And we noticed on your Instagram you've actually made a few changes for your training for this fight, right? We saw that you're now going to be working with the Athlete Center of Excellence. It sounds like a place where knights train and only gentlemen are allowed. And this is the first time you're going to be using a high performance program. I'm just wondering, Jimmy, what was sort of behind the decision, and what differences are you expecting to see with the high performance program now?
Yeah, so all my all my strength and conditioning, well, I sort of just winged it. In the past, I just fucking go into the gym and start lifting weights and trying to do as much explosive stuff as I can and running and all that. But now this is the first time I've ever had a high performance program where I can follow, and I'm going to be able to see improvements in aspects of strength and conditioning and fitness and all that. So it's going to be cool to really sit down and see the improvement I get from this, because it'll be on paper, so I'll actually be able to see it. But that being said, like that's a small part. It's a small part. It's a very important part, but it's a small part. And what wins fights is fighting. So don't get that mixed up.
No, absolutely. Obviously, you're working with Dan Kelly and a bunch of other legends, Sam Greco and the such. So we know that the training camp will be a pretty big one. Tell us, what has it been being a part of Dad's Army over there with Dan Kelly and obviously working with Sam? What's this camp sort of going to look like for you? And what have been sort of a few highlights that you've been able to achieve with the guys? Because I know you guys work hard together and there's a lot of fun things that happen behind the scenes. It's always my camps are always long, hard, grueling. And having guys like that around that can sort of lighten the mood and just make it a little bit more bearable is just a godsend. I've also got my coach down in Bendigo, Stewie Molden, who I've been with for 11 years. It doesn't get as much love as he deserves. But yeah, I think this camp is just going to be more structured. I've had time off. My brain's fresh, my body's fresh. So I'm going to be able to get through most of my sessions without having to bloody tape myself up, which is going to be nice. And having those guys around, it's always good to be able to draw from other people's experience that are around you.
You mentioned the body's fresh and sort of recovered. We also saw that you were in Bali. You took a bit of a break, took a bit of a rest. I think it was like the longest break that you've taken, I think, since like 2016. Just wondering, any crazy stories come out of the Bali trip? Submission Rate is a tell-all program, Jimmy.
I've got makeup over it.
You what, sorry?
You can't. I got a tattoo on my face, but you can't see it because I got makeup on.
And you'll be debuting it in the Canada Media Day, right?
Yeah.
What happened? We saw there was a bit of a Mike Tyson face tattoo. I imagine temporary, but did the girlfriend know that it was temporary? You surprised her when he came home drunk, right?
Yeah, no, she knew. It was funny because people were having a go at me over it. I was just like, fuck, even if it was real, who are you to tell me what I can put on my skin? Fuck off.
What do you mean people were having a go? Like in Bali or on Instagram?
On Instagram.
What were they saying?
Right. Oh, no, like I don't really read the comments of negative. I read all the positive comments. I try and not read the negative comments. But yeah, people were having digs and saying how stupid I was. And I was just like, who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
Wow, that's unbelievable. They're like, we like our Jimmy Crute tattoo free. We don't like our Jimmy Crute. That's crazy, man. You know what? I think you got to bring up that photo with Mike Tyson if you ever run into him in Vegas and say, yes, you inspire me in the octagon and also in my tattoo selection. So now let's talk about sorry, man.
I'll bring it up when I get on his podcast one day.
Yeah, that's right. Man, his podcast, Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, that looks like a great time. So I hope you get on there. We're going to try and start a petition because I'd love to see you on that program. Now, the division itself is getting interesting, Jimmy, because there's a few new people in there. We saw you recently tweeted that you like to fight Chris Weidman. He's one of the new guys that stepped up into the division. What was it about Weidman that interested you as soon as you saw he was going to be a 205er?
Having a former world champion at any weight on your resume is always a good thing. I think Chris Weidman will be better at 205. I think he'll be able to last the rounds better. I think he'll be more powerful, stronger, and he'll have lasting strength throughout the fights at 205. That was the main draw for it, having a former world champ to have on your resume. But when I call out one person, mate, I'll call out the whole division at once. I don't care. They can line them up one by one. I'll fight 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, upwards, downwards. I don't care.
I was going to say, you're really not here to fuck spiders. You want to fight Weidman arguably at his best, right?
Yeah, man. I don't want to beat people because they're over the hill or because they've had a bad performance. I want to beat people at their best. So I know that I put forth a good performance. I don't want to look back and be like, I only beat him because he's not in his prime.
I mean, the big fight card is going to be happening in October in Australia. Obviously, you're focused on Misha right now, but if things go to plan, would that be an ideal goal for you to make a quick turnaround and fight on that card, possibly against a guy like Chris Weidman in a mega card down here in Australia?
You already know it, man. I've already said it. I'll dust Misha in the first come through injury-free. I want to back it up in 3 weeks. I've got no problem fighting Vancouver and then fighting Australia 3 weeks later. No problem at all. And that's what I want.
And I think that's what the fans want a lot as well, because the fans are kind of like, we want to see some international talent come down. And then you get the Jimmy Crute show right here, and then you bring Chris Weidman here. You give him a juicy matchup like this. Everybody wins. And I was going to say, on the subject of the division, the title is being defended, obviously, next weekend as Jon Jones takes on Thiago Santos. Just curious, what do you think of that fight in general, and who do you expect to win in this one, Jimmy?
I think Jon Jones is 10 levels above everyone in the division, including myself. I think Jon Jones is the best pound-for-pound fighter ever to ever do it, ever put on gloves, ever kick someone. He's the best, hands down. I think the guy to catch him might be Thiago Santos, but I don't think it's going to happen. But if there's anyone that's going to catch him, it's going to be Thiago. But I think Jon Jones is just too good, too smart, too big, too strong, and he's gonna. I think he might get clipped, but Jon Jones just showed in the past that he's got heart when he faces adversity. So it's sort of like everyone thinks to get Jon Jones, you got to put it on him, but then you get into a dogfight with him and he's still better than you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, we all remember that Gustafsson fight. I like how candid you are about how good Jon Jones and what kind of a challenge he is for you, sort of, saying that, hey, he's better than me. How do you approach something like that? I know you're not looking to fight Jon Jones, now or anything like that, but when you say that he's 10 levels above you, how do you sort of, I guess, look at sort of your development in the future, knowing that, one day, someday, you want to fight him and your goal is to be the champion as well?
Mate, if they offered me to fight Jon Jones tomorrow, I'd say hell yeah. I'm only 23 years old, and someone can be better than someone and still lose a fight. This is a game of millimeters. So, if I was to fight Jon Jones tomorrow, I'd be fighting with every intention to knock him out or submit him. I'd be going after him like my life depended on it. But you're an idiot if you don't think he's as good as he is, because he's proven it time and time again.
Also, Luke Rockhold will be making his light heavyweight debut on the same card. What do you think about him jumping to 205, and how do you expect him to do?
Same thing as Weidman. I think he's going to be better at 205. All these guys that are cutting massive amount of weight, just putting their body through hell to get to the fight before they even step in the ring. They're already half depleted. So I think Rockhold will be better at 205. I think his chin will hold up better, and he'll, as I said about Weidman, he'll last the 3 rounds better. He'll be stronger throughout the fight and to the end. So, that's another potential matchup if he gets past. Is he fighting Jan? I can't even pronounce his last name.
Jan Blachowicz, yeah.
Yeah, he's a jet too. That's another potential matchup that would be exciting and a massive fight. Another former world champion to get in your resume. But as I said, anyone in the top 15, after I beat Misha Serkinov, anyone in the top 10, I'm down to fight. I don't care who.
And we'll sort of end it on this, Jimmy. We'll let you go because we know you want to get a training in. And Dan Kelly's going to kill us if we stop you from getting training in. But you were sort of talking before about Jon Jones and sort of your mindset. You put up a picture recently on Instagram and you wrote willing to die and willing to kill. Just kind of help us understand that mindset, sort of that you, I guess this is the mindset that you go in with every time you step into the octagon, right?
Yeah, I know I sort of had that early in my career and then I lost it coming into contender and the Paul Craig fight. And it was something that I re-established in myself maybe just before Sam Alvey or just after Sam Alvey. I fought Sam Alvey. And, when you say you're willing to die, it's not like you're going in there expecting to die or you want to die or whatever, but you're willing to go to the end to get the result you want. You just put everything in the back of your mind and you don't care what happens. And that's how I feel that I fight the best when I'm like that.
Mm-hmm. What was it that brought that mentality back before the Sam Alvey fight?
So I went overseas and did a big training trip through Japan, Thailand, and all over the place really. And I don't know, I was just having a look at myself. I sat down with some really inspirational people, and I just really tried to get back to the root of myself. And yeah, that's sort of what I came up with.
Well, I'll tell you what, at 23 years old, you are wiser than many of us, Jimmy Crute. And, of course, you take on Misha Serkinov at UFC Vancouver on September 16th. That's the 15th in Australia, New Zealand on ESPN, of course. Follow the man on Twitter at Crute Jim, and, of course, Instagram at Jimmy Crute UFC. Jimmy, we can't wait to see you take on Misha. Of course, we hope there's a quick turnaround we can see on the Australian card. All the best to Dan, Sam, and the rest of the team. We can't wait to see your next fight, man.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me on. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Bye.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys, this is a special treat. Joining us here on the program is an iconic figure in MMA, the first UFC flyweight champion, a man that was at the top of many people's pound-for-pound list for years, and now at ONE, he returns to action at ONE Dawn of Heroes live in Manila, Philippines on August 2nd. Mighty Mouse Demetrious Johnson, welcome back to Submission Radio. It's great to have you on the program, man.
Thanks, man, for having me back. Apologize for the long delay, but, I'm a busy man.
We know you are a busy man, but you know what they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and our hearts are very fond, man, so thank you so much for taking the time. Also, we wanted to find out, just before we talk about your fight, which we're very excited for, how is Mighty Gaming going? Because we obviously dig the updated logos that you dropped earlier this month.
Yeah, Mighty Gaming is going well. We had a couple of good streams this weekend. Just dropped a brand new video on the YouTube channel, Mighty Gaming. It's going well, But now that my kids are getting older, I don't find as much time to stream. I'm still playing games offline because I play World of Warcraft. But Mighty Gaming is going well, man. We got shirts out and business is good.
It's almost sad to hear that you're not playing or streaming as much, because that was that was something that you associated with for so long. Is it also a kind of, a benefit now that your kids are older, you can kind of play games with them? Do you play games with your kids, or are you kind of like, sorry guys, this is my time, I'm doing my own thing?
Well, now that my kids are getting older, we got them iPads, so they both are playing video games. They're playing more. My oldest, Tyron, he likes to play Flight Simulator, and then my middle child likes to play Jurassic Park, and he likes to do a little Flight Simulator. So both of them are getting bigger. When they get older, I'll definitely get them, bigger computers, and we'll all play World of Warcraft together and have a good time.
Can you imagine that? What a great time. Now, Demetrious, I don't know if you know this or not, but we are terrible at Fortnite, and I know a lot of our listeners are terrible at Fortnite as well. I feel like if you're sort of older, it's a bit tough to get into that game. So I was just wondering, since you're on the program, what is your top 3 tips for someone like me who struggles and just wants to get more than 9 kills in a session when playing the Battle Royal? What are the sort of top 3 tips that you want people to sort of keep in mind for the old guys?
I mean, it all depends what game you're playing. If you're playing Fortnite, get good at building. If you can build, you can go very far in that game. If you can build and you can't shoot, you're still going to be a lot further ahead than the person who can shoot who can't build. So learn how to build, learn how to navigate the map when a gas is coming in, and learn how to build.
There you go, Dennis. Dennis will be up to 10 kills in no time at this rate. So obviously you mentioned at the top of the interview, Demetrious, that it's been a little while since we've sort of had you on the program, and it's also been a little while since this trade has happened from the UFC to ONE. So tell us, how has life changed since leaving the UFC and sort of, you getting accustomed to the ONE landscape? How different is your life now?
Yeah, I love it. Me and my wife were just talking about, when I go compete for ONE, I go out there and compete, come back home, relax, spend time with the family, hear no backlash, don't hear about pay-per-view numbers, don't hear literally nothing. You hear about how great the event was and how satisfying, the fan base is over there for the, the flyweight division. And it's great. It's fantastic. I'm still the new kid on the block. And we got a fight coming up here August 2nd in Manila. Getting ready for that. Training's going great. Feeling great. So just, going along with the punches.
Because I was going to say, like, you were at the top of many people's pound-for-pound list and still are one of the most accomplished UFC champions. I mean, with that, was there a weight that came with that status that you sort of had to constantly deal with? Did you feel like a pressure, especially in the last few fights? It feels like every time you fought, there were fans complaining about this, or the UFC was complaining about that, or, people had high expectations from you, considering, they saw you as the best out of everyone.
No, not at all. I never felt pressure, and I never put pressure on myself. I think the only time when I would, stress how hard I want to train, that'll be the only time I'll put. I guess you could say I feel pressure because I always want to go out there and perform to the best of my ability, and that all comes from training hard in the gym. So I push my body extremely hard in the gym. That way I know when it comes to competition night that I'm going to go out there and perform to the best of my ability.
I guess in that sense, the stress is still there, right? Because I imagine that's something that just doesn't change. Doesn't really matter where you're fighting, UFC or one. You're always going to put that kind of pressure on yourself, right?
100%. Doesn't matter where you're competing at around the world. Pressure's always going to be there.
I mean, of course, the big fight the UFC wanted to do with you is you versus TJ Dillashaw. You wanted to get paid for it, and the UFC sort of refused to meet your asking price. But I'm just wondering, Demetrious, after Dillashaw being caught for using EPO, are you kind of relieved that fight didn't end up happening, looking back on the whole situation?
No, not at all. I mean, obviously, it is what it is. He got caught, using, a banned substance, which I was totally thrown off by it. And it's a shame. But at the end of the day, it's mixed martial arts. This is the only sport, well, other sports it happens too, but, he'll serve his time, 2 to 3 years of his USADA ban. He'll come back, compete, make money, and, life will go on as usual.
How would you have felt, though, like if he had, say, come to 125 and you guys had fought and then you had found out that, same thing, that he had sort of tested positive for EPO?
It's not the first time I fought Ali Blachowicz, but he tested positive for EPO. So
good point. Yeah,
I already been in that boat before, and when I found out by it, I was playing video games. I said, Ariel Wani, I'm busy right now. This is not important. I won. I'm not worried about it. I'm playing video games. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
It's interesting. The UFC is an interesting place since you left. What do you make of Henry Cejudo now being a double champ?
I think it's great. I think he did an amazing fight against Marlon Moraes. He pushed the pace on him, and Marlon ended up gassing and eventually breaking, and Cejudo got that finish.
It's funny because we actually had Joseph Benavidez on the show last week, and he's kind of building a strong case to have another fight with Cejudo. If he gets past Formiga again this weekend, he's got the win over Cejudo. Do you want to see Joe sort of get his shot, before Cejudo moves up for good? It looks like he's wanting to stay at bantamweight and then, maybe even go to featherweight, sort of somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, if he's going to be the champion and defend both belts, this is the next person in line, that's Formiga. So I don't see why not.
I mean, you've obviously got a decisive win over Cejudo, as well as a pretty close split decision loss, where a lot of people still believe that you won that fight. And obviously you're at one now, you're a different company, but if the chance ever presented itself, do you have any interest in a trilogy fight with Cejudo, or is it something that you've sort of moved past and put behind you at this stage?
I moved past it, but behind my stage right now, I'm focused on the Flyweight World Grand Prix with one championship, focused on my next round against Tatsumi Wada. And then if I get past that, then I'll fight the winner on the other side of the bracket. And if I win that, then I'll be fighting for the one championship belt against Adrian Moraes. So that takes precedence, and that's my top priority and my only focus right now.
You know what's crazy, and obviously we're going to speak about that in just a second, but the one flyweight division is so exciting right now, and like you mentioned, they've got the Grand Prix, and whereas in the UFC that we don't really know what's going to happen with the flyweight division. How would you sort of feel if the flyweight division was to sort of be finished off, especially when you've got so many great talents there at the top?
Well, like I said in the past, it's unfortunate. It's not my call, and it is what it is. And I'm not focused on, this part of the world of North America's flyweight division. I'm only focused on Asia side of the flyweight division, which is blooming. It's fantastic. It's booming. The Asian-based fans, they love that division, and they also have the strawweight, so we're not the smallest division.
I mean, obviously, you were the first champion in the UFC, and I feel like you going over to one Demetrious, even though they had a lot of great talent there, is something that really sort of helped kickstart this division at one. I feel like a lot of people got more excited about it, and it's gotten a lot of eyes, obviously, from all over the world to one, not just a lot of the people that would watch in Asia. Do you feel like it's sort of like you're, I suppose, a flag bearer for the division? You helped build it in the UFC, and now in a lot of ways you're helping really build it up at one. Do you sort of get pleasure in that kind of sense?
A little bit, but with Asian mixed martial arts, it's already been there. There's been people in the front runner who've done it before, like guys like Kei Yamamoto. You look at the Bushido, you look at Shuto, you look at Deep, you look at all the organizations, that really relished in the flyweight division. Those guys were basically the pioneers of the sport. I guess you could say I'm the new age pioneer, coming to North America and bringing the North American eyeballs over to one championship for the flyweight division. But there were people before me who were the front runner. I could be one of those guys following their footsteps.
Yeah, 100%. As you mentioned before, Demetrious, obviously coming back on August 2nd against Tatsumitsu Wada in the semi-finals of the One Flyweight Grand Prix. Wada's a bit of a veteran like yourself. He's had sort of mixed performances, but he can still be really dangerous. What do you think of him as he next test, and do you know much about him?
Yeah, I think Tatsumitsu Wada is a great athlete. He had a great fight against Lawler in Manila, I believe they competed in, and I'm looking to get out there and just compete and see how well I can do.
Obviously, Manila in the Philippines has some historic fights there, and none more historic than the thriller in Manila between Ali and Frazier in 1975. Are you pumped to be fighting there and sort of being a part of that fight history there?
Of course, it's a great fight card. You got Rotate taking on Haggerty for the Muay Thai flyweight belt, so that's going to be an amazing main event. And we got Eddie Alvarez taking on Edward Furlong, and you got Danny King that's taking on Card Akmatov. It's going to be a stacked card. I'm happy to be part of it, and I can't wait to get out there and perform.
What do you think of, I guess, some of the other guys that have come over from the UFC, guys like Sage Northcutt and Eddie Alvarez? It seems like you're sort of, the only one who's sort of had the success since making the jump over. And Sage Northcutt arguably sort of matched up against a really, really, really sort of tough test for his one debut as well.
Yeah, well, we all get tough tests. It just shows that, the talent pool over in one championship is legit as well. And I don't want to say those guys falter. They're having success with it as well. They're in a great company where they're going to, one championship's going to build their brand, their resume, and, those guys are global stars over there. So they're getting eyeballs from around the world.
So you mentioned it. You've got the fight in August, and then if you win that, you go through to the finals at the end of the year. Are you excited about the idea of fighting for the One Flyweight Championship? You're the first ever UFC Flyweight Champion, but now you get a chance to do that at one. What does that mean to you?
It's awesome. I'm grateful that I have an opportunity to be able to come over to Asia and compete. I've always wanted to compete abroad, and I think it's the best time to do it. I'm 32 years old, so I got 5 more years left in my career, so I'm going to give it one hell of a run and see we go. If I'm able to fight for the belt and capture that, I think that would just cement my legacy even better.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question. What do you think that says about your legacy? You hold the record for most consecutive title defenses in the UFC, obviously a long-time reigning UFC flyweight champion. What do you think that would do for your legacy to capture the One Flyweight belt as well?
I'll just make it, that much sweeter, I'm a great athlete and a humble person, and, it all depends on how people view my career and my legacy. That's up to them. But for me, as long as I'm retired to go take care of my family and be happy, that's all I'm more focused on.
Well, yeah, because I wanted to sort of ask about your mindset. I always kind of got the sense that the belt wasn't really that important for you. It was just something that came from your success, right? Like you weren't really that concerned with being a champion. It was just kind of, it was the best way to get the most money for your family, and that's just kind of a result of you constantly winning fights, right?
Well, yeah, Yeah, I mean, when you defend your belt 11 times, at the end of the day, I think Mike Tyson said it best. That's just hardware. It's just junk. All you want to do now is make sure your kids and your wife happy. And that's always my number one priority is to make sure they're happy and they're enjoying their life, and I'm enjoying my life too, and be able to see them grow. So that's number one priority. All the other hardware and the championship, that's just icing on the cake. But my main focus is to be able to provide a life for them that I didn't have.
It's interesting. Sometimes you hear guys like say, I think it was either Brock Lesnar or Matt Hughes, and they say they just want to be remembered as country boy who did a lot of work on a farm. Not really what fans remember them as these big stars and champions. So I guess how do you want to be sort of remembered? Do you want to be remembered as Demetrious Johnson, the guy who tore through the UFC's flyweight division, had success over in one, and potentially became the champion there, or do you kind of want to be known more for doing a phenomenal job of providing for your family and your kids and giving them the best possible life?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, I like to say I worked hard my whole entire career. Put on some amazing fights, some amazing things in my career, and I think also it's important to a guy who didn't go to college to wrestle, who didn't have a karate background, who was a hard worker, who was dedicated. He dedicated himself to a craft that he was exposed to out of curiosity, and look what he was able to make from himself.
And obviously you've had an incredible career. You've fought so many times. You've defended the belt so many times. And it's sort of a fresh start at one. I mean, how much longer do you see yourself sort of dominating and fighting on for? You've obviously had the career of a veteran already, but there's just so much to accomplish over at one in Asian MMA. Do you foresee yourself fighting for quite some time longer?
Well, we'll see. It all depends on how the body, responds to the training and the fight. Right now I feel great. I have no injuries whatsoever. 32 years old. Help my wife raise these 3 children. So I got a lot on my plate. It's not like other athletes where they go home after their training and their whole life is based around fighting. I'm actually raising children. So when I get home tonight, it's not kick my feet. It will be that once the kids go to bed, but we'll see how the body responds in training over time.
I remember one time you spoke to us and you were saying how, even though you're a champion, it's not like, say, NFL players who win the Super Bowl and they can retire and they get a pension, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you still have to keep working in order to provide for your family. Is it easier and, I guess, quicker to sort of complete that goal in one championship compared to when you were in the UFC to sort of provide for your family?
I think at the end of the day, it's all relative to what the person spends and how they budget and how they invest their money. So obviously, we're the one that got great people there I can ask, and to ask them to give me tips on how to make that future become a reality, bring it to fruition. And so, I'm happy where I'm at right now, and I think the future's bright.
Would you say one are sort of compensating you a little bit more fairly than the UFC? I remember Eddie Alvarez talking about some crazy figures that he was potentially getting paid when he was coming over. I guess what I'm asking is the pay better in one than it was in the UFC? If you don't mind me asking.
All I can say is I'm a happy man.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, in the meantime, we have this fight to look forward to. One, Dawn of Heroes, live in Manila, Philippines on August 2nd. Mighty Mouse makes his return in this really exciting Grand Prix, and we're excited to see that fight afterwards, if everything goes to plan, to see you win that one championship for the first time. Guys, make sure to follow Demetrious on Twitter at Mighty Mouse and Mighty Mouse 125 on Instagram. Of course, go to www.twitch.tv/Mighty Gaming and check him out, do his thing. Of course, check out Mighty Gaming on YouTube. A lot of great videos there. Demetrious, it's been too long. Don't be a stranger. Come back sooner.
Sounds good, buddy. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a friend of the program, making his light heavyweight debut at UFC 239 next weekend. He is the face of Ralph Lauren's Polar Ultra Blue, a former Strikeforce and UFC middleweight champion, and the 007 James Bond of MMA. We'll have our drink shaken, not stirred. Coming from Florida with love, Luke Rockhold. Welcome back to Submission Radio. you like our 007 puns?
I'll take it, boy.
Good enough. We'll
Go
accept
extend
it.
that. Go extend that July 6th.
Yeah, that's it. He'll be the 007 on July 6th. Got to ask just quickly the most important question off the bat before we talk UFC 239. We've seen you've been giving your dog Lucy swimming lessons on Instagram. You kind of you gave her a bit of a debut on the program a while back. How's she going? Any truth to her joining the 2020 Olympic team in July?
She's doing well. She's a little athlete. We gotta get her back in the water. Gotta get her adjusted. So, good partner in crime.
Mm. Well, speaking of other fun things, of course, you mentioned it. In July, you'll be fighting. Next weekend, you'll be fighting UFC 239. But we noticed you weren't at the media day they did in LA. Tell us, why'd you decide to give it a bit of a miss?
Cause I'm on the other side of the country.
Mm.
It's a bit much right now, and truthfully, my legs, they don't travel well. So I like to just limit my travel as much as possible. I have a wedding this weekend, and so I have to stop in Chicago on the way to Vegas anyway. So to be able to go back and forth just didn't really sound like a convenient program. And it's Jan fucking Blachowicz, so there's not much to say.
What do you mean? It's
Not much to do, right? You know, this is something else. We're fighting Jan fucking Blachowicz. The guy doesn't really talk much. Not much to be said. All there is to do is go out and fight.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Glad you clarified. Oh, well, there's a lot to unpack. When you say your legs don't travel well, what do you mean? Is it because of the past leg injuries? And also, you've got a wedding this past weekend, so what do you mean? It's going to be like wedding crashes this weekend, right?
I wish. No, it's one of my best friends, and so I'm in the wedding. Got to handle business. Have a nice, clean, easy going wedding. Sober, easy, really fun, super fun. It's gonna be great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking forward to
Really good, man. Sounds like a great time.
Sober at a wedding, it's going to be wild.
Sober at a
and
wedding.
everyone's gonna be enjoying themselves. I'm gonna tuck myself in and get a run that night. I'm sure.
Oh, God.
Not your ideal wedding situation, but I'm gonna make the most of it.
Mm.
Do you have to do a speech? And if so, do you have anything prepared? Any good one-liners?
I'm more off the top kind of guy.
Mm.
Obviously, the alcohol helps that situation, and I won't be anyone. So expect disaster.
I'll tell you what, they really should use the video of your speech from the wedding as the promotion of you for UFC 239. Forget this media day in LA. They should bring cameras to this wedding and see what happens. And I was going to say, ultimately, Jan looked like a guy who went to the prom by himself at this media day. He had to do a stare down all on his own. It's giving Jan the feeling of loneliness, one of many Luke Rockhold's mind games going into next weekend.
Loneliness? No, you're going to feel real comfortable. I'm going to make him feel real cozy, sleep tight.
How are you feeling about this fight now that it's sort of a week away? I mean, the story here is obviously, when you first began training for this fight, you moved to 205. How's the body sort of healing up? You mentioned that your legs don't travel very well. How is the body and the legs these days?
Legs doing much better. Body's, it's a completely different place. In training camp, no issue with weight. Weight's falling off easy. I'm eating healthy, doing what I need to do. So, not nearly as broken down. Feel good. The legs are just they're just damaged. Once you've kicked as much as me and you've damaged the soft tissue, you've had all those contusions. You get edema, and it's just you have to wear compression socks. And my legs still up. It's not a fun program, but that's the life of a fighter. I think I destroyed my legs pretty good when I fought Jacare back in 2011. I had balloons for calves for like the next month, and just over and over you get some hard shots and things don't circulate like they used to.
That's pretty crazy. So will the leg kick still, because that was a staple of the Luke Rockhold arsenal, you know, the leg kicks, the head kicks, the body kicks, all kinds of kicks. Can you still, I guess, fight the way that you used to and sort of implement the kicks as much in your fights these days? Or have you completely had to work around that and sort of change things?
Well, I just referenced 2011 fighting Jock Ray when all that happened, and I've kicked fairly well since then, haven't I? So
yeah.
I don't really think twice. When it's time to kick, it's time to kick. You know, the only time the last fight with UL, I had fractured my shin, and so I knew there was something wrong. And maybe I hesitated a little bit after that, but as long as there's no breaks in my legs, I'm throwing.
I guess the interesting thing that we want to find out from you is usually we'd speak to you about middleweight, and you'd say sort of towards the end of the camp, because you're losing all of that weight and you have to cut down to middleweight. It takes a toll on your body to do, you know, and also having your training camp and training hard. Would you say this is the best that you've felt in quite some time, being able to fight at 205? Like, does your body feel a lot better than the last few fights at middleweight?
Yeah, no, it feels good. I feel strong. As long as you manage your body, or I'm always pushing my body to the bitter end. I will not be outworked. I'll never lose a fight in that fashion. It'll never happen. So I'm gonna push myself into that breaking point every time I get out there and get into the training camp. I'm always gonna hit that point. So there's gonna be fatigue. There's gonna be times, but I'd say my body's reacting much better now. But definitely with the food, being able to replenish and do what I need to do in the meantime.
Speaking of weddings, you have a very, very good relationship with your trainer, Henry Hooft. I almost feel like you should bring him as your date to this wedding. I feel like you two would have a lot of great stories for the guests at this wedding in Chicago. And we saw that he turned 50. He turned 50 4 weeks ago. So we've got to ask, what was that party like? We imagine there was a big party at the gym. There'd be fairy bread, party poppers, cabana soft cheeses, maybe a bunch of strippers. What was the surprise party like for Henry Hooft?
It wasn't much. Man. Everyone's focused. Everyone's fighting. Not much going on. So I think we were in the gym and cracking a bit. So it was a fairly easy deal. Henry had a good vacation. Went out to Thailand, cleared his head. He's been working for a long time lately. So he did his birthday adventure out in Thailand, I'm sure.
I mean, obviously, he's a really cool guy. He's been on the program before, but he's someone that doesn't really sugarcoat. You know, he's very direct. We've seen his coaching style, you know, in between rounds in the corners. What's your relationship like with him? Because you guys seem to gel really, really well. What's it like, sort of working with him? And what would you say is the sort of thing that makes your relationship so successful and sort of makes you want to stick around and keep working with him?
I think he's passionate. He's driven. He's always studying. He's always learning. I think that's one of the biggest keys. You know, he comes in with that hunger every day, and that's what you want in a coach, and that's what you want someone to feed off. And that's the key. You know, he's always tuned in. So I think you want to be inspired every day you get in the gym, and with Henry and Kami and Greg Jones, the three of them together, they all bring a different kind of energy and creativity to the game. And so they all feed off each other well, and we feed off them.
It's all about the energy and sort of the way that everything gels. Now, gotta say, obviously your fight's next week at UFC 239, but the light heavyweight division, it's kind of crazy times. Alexander Gustafsson, somebody that, you know, you were sort of linked to at one point, seemed to have your eyes set on for a while. He recently retired. Just wondering, you know, what was your reaction when you saw that he retired after his loss to Anthony Smith?
It looked like he retired before the fight started. A long time before. So, I mean, I don't think there was much left for him to do. He lost to DC, he lost to John twice. He's not climbing back to the top. I mean, that's going to take a lot out of you, and they're not going to give him that opportunity. So what else is there? So I don't know where his head's at. His head wasn't there. He had a family, and I think he was just felt an easy exit in Stockholm and found a way out in the fight. obviously. Had a great career, put up some amazing fights, pushed DC to a split decision and Jon Jones to a split decision. The guy's made his mark. Good for him. Good for him. But he didn't come to fight that night. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, because I was going to say, obviously, a lot of people felt like this was going to be a tough fight for Anthony Smith, and you sort of spoke about it a little bit. Were you surprised that he was able to win that fight? And I suppose my question is, are you impressed with what he was able to do? Does this sort of put him back in your firing line if you beat Jan, or do you still sort of have the same feelings about him as a fighter?
My feelings have not changed whatsoever. I think, like I said, Gus didn't come to fight. Anybody who has any tie for the sport could see that he didn't do a damn thing in that fight, and he found a way out when the opportunity presented itself. You know, it was an easy exit for him. So that's that. You know, obviously the guy can fight. He could fight, but he just doesn't want it anymore.
So just to clarify, after Jan Blachowicz, that there won't be an Anthony Smith fight, right? Not a guy that's sort of in your firing line.
You never know what's to come. I'm gonna focus on fighting Blachowicz, and I'm gonna put this man away, and then I'm gonna look forward. And there's opportunities out there. We'll see what's up. But, you know, Jon Jones is right there, and I'm not looking to dance around too long. If there's an opportunity. If things work out, you know, I perform, he performs. You never know. So, and then if there's a delay, there's also a business side of this thing too. So, Anthony Smith could work his way in too. Anybody above me, I'm looking to make a mark.
I want to quickly get your thoughts on the Jon Jones fight that's coming up as well. But just quickly, your old rival Chris Weidman, he's announced that he's now going to light heavyweight. I feel like he made it cool, Luke, and now everybody's copying you. Chris Weidman's making his move to light heavyweight. What do you make of the fact that you and him might mix it up once again if he wins a couple of fights? You guys might meet up once again.
Yeah. I think it's a good move for Chris. He's probably a bit drained. He's a big guy himself, so he should translate well. I think a lot of these light heavyweights lack technique, and they get away with their size, and so you come up with technique and skill, and you do well at this weight class. So Chris is a tough guy. I'm sure he'll do his thing. We'll see down the line. You never know.
I was going to say, it's almost like a race between the two of you guys, because you're both big names, both former world champions at middleweight. And so going up to 205, it makes sense that, you guys both sort of, I guess, rise to sort of get that next title shot. But just as far as Jon Jones, there aren't really a lot of contenders sort of at 205 at the moment. And, we were doing some calculations here, drawing on the glass at Submission Radio offices, and it kind of seems like you might actually be the next contender with a win over Jan Blachowicz. Do you see that as a possibility, and maybe fighting Jon Jones next? You kind of touched on that a little bit before.
I'm paying attention to what's out there, and there's not, and there's a lot of history with a matchup like that. I've been there through many training camps for Jon Jones and been doing Jon Jones, so we'll see. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna fight my fight, and John's got to win his fight. Santos is dangerous. He's a bit of a spaz. He throws hard, and we don't want to get hit with one of those things.
Are you giving Santos much of a chance against Jon Jones? Do you think he can pull the upset?
I don't. John's got to get in on one time. That's it. John's a tactical guy. He's not gonna go out there and make a lot of mistakes. He can judge the distance well, and he gets a takedown. You haven't seen that man on his back, and I don't expect much from it.
I was going to say, you mentioned how you were around for Jon Jones's camps for so many years, and of course you're referring to your good friend, training partner, Daniel Cormier. He's expressed interest in maybe going down to 205 and fighting Jon Jones one more time to try and get that win. First of all, I remember on our show you saying that you wouldn't let him go back to 205 because he drains himself too much and he's such a better fighter at heavyweight. So first of all, would you allow this to happen? And secondly, would you I guess allow it in the sense of, your own career as well, and sort of be willing to, let DC have that that fight back, sort of, and maybe you take a fight in the process before you get your shot at Jon Jones?
Well, I'm fighting before DC, so I'm gonna take my dibs on that thing if the opportunity presents itself. DC, I think it's foolish for him to come try to challenge Jon back down. I think Jon should have to come challenge him up for the heavyweight title. I mean, that's where their natural weight is. Jon's a big guy. He cuts a lot of weight too to get down. So Jon's scared to fight DC at heavyweight. I don't know why DC thinks he's got to come back down to fight him there to prove some point that it's not. Doesn't make sense.
Do you reckon that that's what it is? Because I know Jon Jones has sort of spoken in the past about how he feels like it'd be an advantage if he went up to heavyweight. It'd be an advantage for DC. Do you feel like he's a little bit worried about his chances if he went up?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, you're damn straight he is. And Jon ain't talking about fighting DC at heavyweight. You know, he's kind of beating around the bush, and he's trying to bait him back down and antagonize him a little bit. So Jon doesn't want to fight DC at heavyweight. There's only a few guys he wants to fight that make sense. He's tactically, he looks at things.
And I can't wait for fight week to see you guys sort of hanging around each other during fight week. And if anyone's going to bring up the fact that you're the next challenger for him, but as we wrap up, we want to find out from you, what do you have in store for the fans for your light heavyweight debut? I mean, what can fans expect for this fight? I know you've been getting prepared. You've been working really hard. Do you have a prediction here of how this fight goes down in Vegas next weekend against Jan? Do you have sort of a sequence in mind that plays out over and over when you visualize how this thing goes?
I'm faster than all these guys. I'm more technical. You know, these guys can't make mistakes. I'm gonna beat them to the spot, and I'm gonna make them pay. I'm gonna throw everything. You know, obviously, you know, I got a heavy left kick, and you can't really stop it. So I don't know where Jan's coming. Is he coming southpaw? Is he coming orthodox? He seems to not like the body kick. So, you know, we might have a southpaw. So if that's the case, you know, I got something for him too. And one thing that everybody knows is I'm a son of a bitch when I'm on top of you. And Jan Blachowicz ain't getting up if that happens.
Well, we've seen that many times, Luke, and we know you're dangerous there. Can't wait for next week. Obviously, the kicks are back. Luke Rockhold at 205. Finally, you and Jan Blachowicz will have a stare down. He won't be, he won't be there by himself. So that's something to look forward to. Catch him on Twitter and Instagram at Luke Rockhold. And of course, at UFC 239 next weekend. Luke, always appreciate you coming on the show, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Luke. Best of luck at this wedding, and we'll speak to you soon.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my two favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys. Well, this is fresh right here. Here we have on the program the man who takes on Robbie Lawler at UFC Fight Night Newark on August 3rd. It's going to be the 4th here in Australia and New Zealand on ESPN. A big shock to the MMA community just the other day, and here he is, fresh on Submission Radio. Look at this new setup. He's got the belt, he's got the hat, and for the first time, he's got Donald Trump himself in the background. Colby Covington, welcome back to Submission Radio. Pleasure, man. Thank you so much for jumping on. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me back on. I'm ready to make Submission Radio great again.
Great again. Well, I'll tell you what, there's always some greatness, but when the great one's on the program, there's bonus greatness, which we really enjoy. Tell us about this Robbie Lawler fight, Colby, because for a long time we believed you'd be fighting for the title next. Then this shock announcement happens earlier this week. Tell us, why did you take the fight with Robbie Lawler? What sort of went into the process there?
Yeah, so, Uncle Dana called America's Champ, me, and, I answered the call. I always do. I'm a company man. I'm here to fight, man, and that's the thing. None of these other guys that have been champs in the past are here to fight. They're here to negotiate. They're here to do this bullshit Floyd Mayweather plan where they sit out and look for the easiest contenders. But not me. I'm America's champ. I'm the people's champ, and I'm here to defend my title. And there's no one more worthy of getting a title shot right now than Robbie Lawler. He's the last real champion of our division. His legacy speaks for itself. He's an all-time great. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I can't wait to get in the octagon with him August 3rd in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center.
A lot to unpack there. Last time we spoke to you and the UFC were having a few problems. We've seen you and Dana White have had problems in the past. So would you say that the relationship's a lot better? And when you say Dana called you, did you actually get a phone call from him directly asking you to do this fight? How did that go down?
Yeah, me and Dana are best buddies. You know, we had a good talk. We had a good talk last March when I was in Vegas. He understands who I am now, what I'm about. And I'm here to make this division great again. Marty Fake Newsman, he's not here to make this division great again. He's there to sit around and pick an easy contender and fake injuries. I'm here to fight, man. I'm here to put on shows. I'm here to entertain the fans. That's what it's all about. That's why I'm the people's champ.
So obviously people were kind of shocked when they saw the news that you'd be fighting Robbie, although it is obviously a fantastic stylistic matchup. But just curious, Colby, how long has this sort of been in the works? When did Dana sort of first call you and sort of get the ball rolling for this one? When did you find out?
You know, it got put together yesterday. And,
wow.
You know, yeah, I'm a man of my word. I'm promises made, promises kept. I told the UFC I've been ready to fight for the last year, defend my title. So, you know, they called me for August 3rd on a short camp, and I didn't even hesitate. I said, yes, sir. No, sir. No problem, sir. So, you know, it's an exciting matchup, man. Robbie's coming off a dominant win over Ben Askren in his last fight. He's never looked better. He looks stronger than he's ever looked. You know, he's a great fighter. You know, he's a fan-friendly fighter, and we're going to put on a show in Newark, New Jersey on ESPN, man. Primetime. It's going to be big cities and bright lights, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, you brought up Ben Askren. He was sort of saying that he'll be the next one to get the title shot. And he was at LA Media Day talking about how you're not going to get the next title shot. And I know he went on Twitter and said something along the lines of, I told you so, Colby, you're not getting the next title shot. Does that frustrate you, the fact that he'll be fighting next weekend and possibly in contention for a title shot if he beats Masvidal? Or did Dana White guarantee that you'd be the next one with the title shot if you beat Robbie Lawler here?
What do you mean title shot? I got a title right here.
Second championship, Colby. Second championship.
Hey, man, I don't need this is America's championship. This is the people's championship. Ben Askren, he's never earned things the hard way like I have. He wants to jump me in line because he can't earn it, because he's an expiring on a dad bod. He's 39 years old. He's at the end of his career. You know, he's actually going to die probably pretty soon. He's so old. So, of course, he wants to skip me in line to get a title shot because he can't earn it the right way like I do.
I was going to ask, did you speak to Dana sort of about that when you guys had your conversation? Did you speak about, you know, you getting guaranteed the next title shot and sort of, you know, where Ben Askren stands sort of, you know, in I guess, that race as well?
Nah, all I care, I got a title. They never took my title. Possession is 9/10 of the law. So, you know, I don't really care about I'm fighting for a title August 3rd against Robbie Lawler. This title will be on display, and it will be on the line. So, you know, I don't really care about title shots, man. I'm fighting for my legacy. I'm fighting for the fans, and I'm going to fight whoever the fans want me to put on, the UFC wants me to fight. I'm just going to put on entertaining shows and entertain everybody, man. That's what I do, man. I'm a showstopper. I'm going to steal a show August 3rd. I don't care about no title shots because I already got a title. What do I need a title shot if I already got a title?
I was going to ask Colby, sort of help us understand, what exactly did Dana White say as far as Usman, and sort of what was his explanation for why that fight's not happening, and sort of maybe the time frame for when that fight, you know, may happen in the future?
Yeah, he pretty much just said Marty Fake Newsman's a little crybaby. He's got a different injury. Oh, my shoulder. Oh, now my hernia. Oh, this, that, you know. He's got a different excuse and fake injury every week. You know, that's why he's Marty Fake Newsman. So, you know, the show must go on, Dennis. It's big city and bright lights, and we got to move on. It doesn't matter. I don't care about Marty Fake Newsman. I don't need Marty Fake Newsman. He needs me more than I need him. So, you know, I'm going to go out there. I'm only focused on Robbie Lawler right now. He's ruthless. So, you know, I got to focus on him. First things first. I don't care about anything else right now. All I care about, my focus is on Robbie Lawler.
I mean, Usman mentioned, maybe I'll fight Ben Askren if he wins. Do you think he's afraid to match up with you? It just seems like he just doesn't really want to talk about fighting you, and his manager Ali obviously isn't a big fan of you. Do you believe he's afraid of the matchup?
It's obvious. Do you guys not see it?
Well, we're curious what you think as far as, like, you know, how you view it from your lens.
I don't think. I know. I begged to fight that guy after he won the Ultimate Fighter against my team, American Top Team. He refused to fight me. And then he wants to go out there and say my name after I've already got fights with RDA, after I've already got fights with Damian Maia. Oh, we live 20 miles apart. Oh, I'm going to do it for the wrath of the immigrants. Oh, I black out when I see Colby in the room, this and that. He was chatting all that shit when I had my fights and I was fighting for titles, and he had to attach himself to my name to stay relevant. And now he's got a Power Ranger #1 contender belt. He can't say my name. Now he's scared because he doesn't want to lose everything he worked for to me. So Marty Fake Newsman's a little bitch. He's a thing of the past. And I think the fans see the real colors that he brings to the table. He's a fake. He's a con artist, just like his dad.
I said it before and I'll say it again, Colby. I think you versus Robbie Lawler stylistically is a fascinating matchup. I guess the other interesting thing is you've had these sort of personal rivalries with your last few opponents, but you're showing sort of a ton of respect for Robbie Lawler, really giving his props. Why the difference in attitude towards Robbie Lawler compared to some of the other guys?
To be honest, Robbie Lawler is a legend. And let's be honest, if you guys went in Australia and took a poll of 1,000 people on the street, who do they know more, Marty Fake Newsman or ruthless Robbie Lawler?
Yeah, Robbie Lawler is quite popular down here. I think he was supposed to fight at one point and everybody was pretty excited.
Yeah, him and Condit, 193. Almost happened here.
Exactly my point. We're fighting the biggest name in the division behind myself, obviously. So we got a title on the line. It doesn't get any bigger than this, boys. We're fighting on big ESPN. The Trumps, the first family, is going to be front row. It's going to be a spectacle. I don't need what else can I ask for? He's the biggest name in the division besides myself.
So let me get a couple of things straight here, Kobe. First of all, the Trump family is going to be front row. Who will be attending? And second, are you actually putting your interim title on the line in the sense that if Robbie wins this, does he get your title if somehow you lose this fight?
Well, first off, I'm not losing this fight, so he's never getting my title, and he knows that deep inside. We used to train together. He knows how capable I am. When it was his time and he was the great of the division, he was training with me, and he knew I was the present and the future. So, August 3rd, he's going to find that out again. But, as far as the Trumps come in the first family, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, I've been in touch with. Of course, I went and saw them at Trump Tower about 2 or 3 weeks ago when I was up in New York, hanging out with the Marines and the Navy for Fleet Week. So they have given me their word that they will be front row at my next fight.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Let me ask you this. You mentioned you've trained with Robbie Lawler and he saw that you were sort of the present in the future. Can you take us a little bit more into what those training sessions were like? Would you say you had the upper hand over him back in those days when you guys used to mix it up?
Yeah, it was pretty obvious. That's why he brought me in to train with Johnny Hendricks. He knew I was the best southpaw wrestler in the world, and that's why he brought me in. So definitely got the better hand of him. But it's Robbie Lawler. Everybody knows he can turn your lights out with one punch. So it's a different game when you put the little gloves on and the bright lights, and the cameras get big. So this is his opportunity to get redemption on me. And I know he's going to come super motivated because, my agent, Dan Lambert, American Top Team's owner extraordinaire, used to be his agent, and they used to be good friends, and they had a falling out, and he went to our rival, Jim Blackzilian. So, I know he's going to want to get revenge on Dan Lambert, and he wants to take my head. So I'm expecting the best Robbie Lawler we've ever seen.
It's interesting because obviously he had that controversial loss to Ben Askren. Obviously, a lot of people wanted to see that one happen again, but Ben wasn't very keen on fighting Robbie Lawler again. What did you make of the fact that he was sort of trying to dodge doing that rematch after initially fighting him? And what did you make of that win that he had over Robbie Lawler?
Ben Askren, plain and simple, was scared. He was terrified of ruthless Robbie Lawler. He knows he got knocked out, and the ref saved his life that night. Of course he doesn't want a rematch, It was a fluke win, and it should have never happened. But, that's why I'm here. And I'm going to do what Ben Askren couldn't do. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to finish Robbie Lawler. I'm going to make it a decisive win where who the champion is and who won that night. There will be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There will be no controversy surrounding my win. I will finish Robbie Lawler.
I was going to say, I imagine that's kind of partly the motivation there as well, right? To kind of top Ben Askren and sort of like top his win over over Robbie Lawler. And also, what did you think of Robbie in that fight? Because he seemed like he was in even better shape than in the past, arguably stronger than he was in the past. You may even be facing, one of the most dangerous Robbie Lawlers we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, definitely. His body physique looked better than I've ever seen in his whole entire career. It's who knows what type of vitamins he's on over at Black Zillions. So, the guy looked incredible, man. He came out and he dropped Ben Askren on his head. He took his Hodge Trophy that night, taking him down like that. And then he viciously knocked him out and then woke him back up. And then, there was that choke that it wasn't even on the neck. It was on the face. And then Herb Dean just stops the fight. It was complete controversy. And I can't believe that it should have been overturned to a no contest. I can't believe they actually have that win on Askren's resume. But it's okay. I don't need to one-up Askren in anything. I got a title in the UFC. He doesn't even have a UFC win yet. And let's be honest, he doesn't even have kids yet. He's had 3 kids through science, man. All his kids are test tube babies. He's still a virgin.
Wow. And I mean, obviously he's fighting a close friend, Masvidal, next weekend. How do you think that fight goes? Do you believe he can get past Masvidal?
George is not a close friend. He's my best friend. He's my bestest bestie in the whole entire world. I love Jorge Masvidal. I'm so excited for the fight. I think he's going to knock Ben Askren into the second row. So it's going to be exciting. You guys don't want to miss that one.
I mean, I know it's not something that you like to talk about, but if Masvidal does beat him, that sort of puts him around the same spot in the division as you. Have you got, because you guys are like brothers, how do you handle a situation like that?
We've talked about this situation for many years, and we knew the situation and time was going to come. So, we'll cross that bridge when we come. We're worried on what's ahead of us. We can't be thinking too far ahead. He's worried on Ben Askren. I'm worried on ruthless Robbie Lawler. And then we'll cross the bridge after August.
It's kind of crazy in the welterweight division at the moment because, there's so many exciting fights at the moment. There's so many sort of, contenders as well. You obviously being the interim champion. Did you at any point sort of feel like you had to take this fight against Robbie Lawler in order to sort of, not be passed over for this Usman fight?
There's only one exciting fight, boys, that everybody wants to see at welterweight. It's Colby Covington, the marquee. I'm the one that's going to be putting ass in seats. I'm the one everybody's going to be tuning into to see on the big show. So, I don't really care about any other fight but my own. This is a title fight. This is the highest magnitude fight you can get in the UFC. So I'm very excited to show my new skills that I've acquired over the last year since I beat Ralphie Dos Nachos' ass.
Fantastic time having you on the program, Colby, and we appreciate your time. Just a few more questions. Obviously, a massive, massive fight, and fans are really lucky because they get to see this one on free on ESPN. But, I mean, why not pay-per-view? Why isn't this fight on a pay-per-view? It seems like a fight that people would pay the hard-earned money for, and the UFC are sort of struggling to put together pay-per-views with big fights on them. So what was your explanation that Dana White and the UFC gave to you for not putting you as a, co-main or even right up there on a pay-per-view when they're sort of struggling to put these pay-per-views together?
Because I am the people's champ and I'm here to serve for the people. So that's what this fight's all about, is giving the fans what they want, what they pay their hard-earned money for. And that's an exciting fight on free TV on ESPN. It's going to be a bigger show than any pay-per-view. There's going to be more people tuning into ESPN than any pay-per-view. So, this is what the fans want. They're getting the people's champ, and the people's champ is coming to put on a show and steal it.
Absolutely fascinating. Just a couple more questions. You're going to have a new sort of name in the welterweight division. Nate Diaz is going to be fighting at UFC 241 and sort of trying to make a name for himself in the division. Just quickly, Colby, as the quote-unquote champ in the division, what do you make of Nate making his way into the division and possibly even challenging you one day for the title?
I mean, to be honest, that's no challenge. I mean, you saw what Ralphie Dos Nachos did to him. He beat his ass. And then also the last guy that I retired, Dong Hum Kim, also beat the living shit out of Nate Diaz. So the thing about Nate Diaz is he's hooked on weed, but he needs to get hooked on phonics.
So are you giving him a chance here against Anthony Pettis?
I mean, who cares? They're two jobbers, two irrelevant, back-of-the-line fucking gatekeepers. I mean, I could care less of what happens in that fight. All I care is about championship fights, money fights, and making my legacy. That's all that matters right now, defending this belt and continue to do what I do best, and that's win. I don't just talk the talk. I walk the walk.
All right. Well, as we wrap up, and we do appreciate your time, what is your message to the fans out there that believe that Usman is the real champion in the division? What's your message to the fans out there to sort of that sort of think that way?
Marty Fake Newsman, I mean, how could you consider that guy the real champ? He's got a Power Ranger belt. He's got a fake smile. He's got a fake lisp. He's got one lazy eye. The guy doesn't fight. He fakes injuries. He's the Woodley 2.0. The last real champion in this division was Robbie Lawler. That's why I'm excited for him to get a title shot against me. So this is the real belt. Everybody knows this is the real belt. I bring the fans in. I bring the entertainment. And any time I'm in a fight, it's an exciting fight that people want to see. So people don't care about Marty Usman. Let's be honest. He's really honestly becoming irrelevant right now. So, you know, just because he's got his little Power Ranger belt and he beat an over-the-hill Woodley who's past his time, that doesn't mean shit, man. Who did he beat before? He beat all the guys, all my sloppy seconds. He beat Damian Maia. He beat Ralphie Dos Nachos. 2 guys that I retired and left for dead. So he just came and picked up the carcasses off the bones that I left, and that's that. So everybody knows who the real champ is. Marty Fake Newsman's a joke, and he will be exposed sooner than later.
Sorry, I lied about that being the last question. You mentioned Tyron Woodley. I'm surprised that you and him didn't get matched up and that he isn't fighting you for your title. Are you surprised that fight never sort of materialized? Even now at this point where, you know, he was sort of looking for a fight.
Nah, let's be honest, guys. Tyquil Woodley does not want to fight, let alone fight me. He wants nothing to do with me. We've trained multiple sparring sessions. The guy's a joke. He's not even close to my level. He knows I'd knock him out within 3 rounds. It wouldn't be competitive. So the guy doesn't want to fight anymore, man. He's doing his little fake rapping career, making albums about me. He's talking about the Kardashians on TMZ. You know, the guy's a joke, man. He's a washout. You know, he's a reject. So, you know, let him fade into nobody cares about him anymore. That's all he's good for.
Well, there you go, guys. I'm excited. Colby Covington versus Robbie Lawler at UFC Fight Night Newark on August 3rd. It is going to be August 4th here in Australia and New Zealand because of the time difference. Of course, it's going to be on ESPN all over the place. Follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Colby Cov MMA. And obviously watch the fight. Colby, really appreciate your time, man. Always appreciate you coming on and very excited to see you take on Robbie Lawler. Can't wait. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, guys. And one last little final note is, if you guys want to improve your chances of getting laid this summer, make sure you get over to prowrestlingtees.com/KolbyCovMMA. Get a Great American Winning Machine. Get a Nerd Bash shirt. Just get a Colby Chaos shirt, and I promise you it will improve your chance of getting laid this summer. You won't have to have test tube babies and science babies like Ben Askren.
There you go, guys. Grab some shirts. Thank you so much, Colby. Appreciate it.
Later, guys.
Yeah, that's right. El Guapo here. That means the pretty face. All you guys out there, you're listening to Submission Radio. Godspeed and party on. Whoop, 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 whoop.
All right, guys. Our next guest is without a doubt one of the best fight analysts in the sport. You know him from his excellent work on Severe MMA and the Severe MMA podcast, Sherdog.com. His useless fact of the day. And also he was, of course, the runner-up in the glorious and merciless MMA Media FIFA tournament. And much like Malibu Stacy, who's got a new hat, it's Sean Sheehan, and he's got a new phone. Sean, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on the show.
Oh, yeah, the MMA or still be gone if I was the second man in that. Let's be honest here. So who is the real winner? Well, I'm only joking. But it's funny you say that, the runner-up, because last year there's these guys, the Sound of Violence podcast. They do a good podcast. They review MMA podcasts, right? And someone sent me a thing last year that I came second in like best guest on other podcasts. And I was like, oh, just making a joke about it and stuff. And then I went to listen to the podcast because someone said it's actually good. And I went to listen to it. And it's actually really good. I think they put one out like every week or every couple of weeks talking about MMA podcasts. So this year, I'm getting that #1 slot. So I'm here.
Wait. So these people review guests, and yeah, was this the Submission Radio appearances that put you here, or?
Yeah, Submission Radio and other places, other various. Submission Radio were the best. They literally said Submission Radio. My appearances on Submission Radio got me. I think John Morgan won it, which I said it was a good podcast.
Also Submission Radio appearances.
They picked John Morgan over me. How good can they be, really? But like, we all made mistakes. And
let me ask you
this: #1 this year.
Was that the only time Submission Radio appeared in their finalist?
No, if you go to their website,
with you being on the program.
If you go to their website, they list all the podcasts. They do Trojan work. It's actually really good. They listen to like fucking 20 MMA podcasts a week and review them and tell you about the guests and what they talk about. And it's all actually a really, really good resource. So those lads put in good work. If anyone's, an MMA fan, you're kind of thinking, what podcast should I listen to? Go and listen to them. I'm not picking up my own podcast or anything, because they don't, they might spend 30 seconds on that, but you can hear other good ones. So yeah, they talk about Submission Radio. Sure. Who else has better guests than Submission Radio? The best they have me.
Look at that. Well, just for that, we'll big up your podcast later on in the show, Sean. Absolutely. And you're like a cornerstone of Submission Radio programming. Obviously, we're going to be talking about some current news, but just wanted to quickly get your reaction to bare knuckle FC6 just over this past weekend. Obviously, Artem Lobov's win over Paulie Malignaggi. Did anything surprise you about that fight, Sean, or the way it played out?
A lot did, actually, I suppose. There's a weird thing about bare knuckle boxing is that who does it actually favor? Does it favor a boxer because obviously it's boxing and they're going to have better boxing skills, or does it favor the MMA fighter because that's kind of who's it's boxers and MMA fighters fighting in this because of the more rough and tumble nature of it? Cuts are one thing I think that are way bigger in MMA than they are in boxing. We see guys get cut in boxing and the fights are stopped way quicker. It's a different thing just because of the different gloves and elbows and stuff like that. We're more used to cuts in MMA, so there's it's a very different sport, I think, from both of them. Is it a sport? I suppose is a question a lot of people, including myself over on Twitter, want to ask. But I think watching it and watching that fight, especially at the weekend, it was different than what the questions we usually ask are, because I think the fight at the weekend was not about, there was cuts and stuff, but I don't think they played any major factor. It was not about which style would win. It was about the judging in it, I think, and about how judges judge fights. And I know we'll probably talk a bit about Bellator later on, and there's a bit about that in judging as well. But I think in bare knuckle boxing and in MMA and in boxing as well, more so all the time, and especially I think in MMA, it's about the effect your shots have more than the shots you actually land or the number of shots you land. So Paulie Malignaggi going around jabbing and jabbing and jabbing for a round, and Artem hitting him with one shot, and even if it doesn't connect fully, if it puts him a little bit off balance or if he's off balance a bit and it looks like it hits him, I think that actually scores more than these 10 jabs in a row. Whether you like that or not, that's an argument you should have, but it's not one you should have every week, because I think that's the way it is, and especially in MMA as well. But the bare knuckle boxing fight, I thought Artem did unbelievably well. I really didn't expect him to do that well. I thought he might get him in clinches, hurt him there. The referee was breaking up the clinches a lot. Artem was doing a good job of dodging a lot of those jabs. He obviously he had a few as well, but I think he did a good job of closing off the cage maybe 3 or 4 times per round. Well, maybe not that much even, but 1 or 2 times per round, and hitting him with those shots when he was able to do that, and ended up winning the fight because of it. I 100% think he won the fight. I think he landed the better big shots in those 3 rounds, and yeah, surprising. Fair play to Artem. You have to hand it to him against the former world boxing champion. He beat him in a boxing match, so fair play to him.
And I think with Artem as well, he sort of took a chance. I mean, we saw the Jason Knight fight was absolutely brutal. Then he takes quite a quick turnaround in the sense that he took a lot of damage to take on a guy like Paulie Malignaggi, who's an accomplished boxer. And I feel like he took that chance, came out on top. He was kind of like the hero of the weekend, because on the weekend we had the Korean Zombie, had an exciting KO, UFC Greenville, of course. Gegard Mousasi was dethroned. But I feel like everyone was talking about Artem versus Paulie on the weekend. That was kind of like one of the main topics for discussion. So do you think this was a big win for bare knuckle boxing, or because a lot of people sort of were a little bit turned off because the fight wasn't, it wasn't a up against the wall, pedal to the metal, both guys trying to knock each other's heads off, and then they were shaking hands and they were friends. It wasn't kind of what people signed up for a lot of people. So there were a lot of disappointed fans. So the question is, was this a big win for bare knuckle boxing, or was it a loss? Is this something that people aren't going to watch again after this? How do you make of it?
Neither, I don't think. I think if Artem Lobov fights again and he has a good matchup, people will watch him because they know who he is. If Paulie Malignaggi was to fight again, they'd watch him because they know who he is. But if Jason Knight fights another in a main event, nobody's going to watch that. it's not the sport that's drawing people. It's not bare knuckle boxing that's drawing people, and it never will. I don't think the sport lasts, to be honest. I think, they say, oh, how different will it look in 5 years? I'd say it look very different because it won't exist. But it's the draws that are drawn. Like, it's the same in the UFC right now at the top level, but you have that three-letter UFC to draw the people underneath it. In bare knuckle boxing, you have the people at the top who draw, Artem Labov and Paulie Malignaggi, obviously very, very few who will do it or who can do it, but you've nothing underneath it. It's a sport that very, very few people are going to watch. I don't think boxing people will watch it hardly at all. MMA people, the hardcore MMA people will watch it because hardcore MMA people want to see Jason Knight. They'll want to see Artem Labov. They'll want to see, Joey Beltran, and it's fun and it's something to do on a Saturday night. But overall, outside of the very, very, very hardcore MMA fans, it's not going to take off at all. I don't think. I really, really don't.
Just quickly, because we are kind of low on time, wanted to ask you, Bellator 223, obviously Dennis mentioned Gegard Mousasi taking a loss, and obviously Lovato Jr. causing the upset win or pulling the upset win. What did you think of that fight and the decision itself?
I thought it was an extremely close decision. I thought it was a good fight, but kind of an odd fight as well. And, we talk about bias in fights and going in with kind of a bias, and I suppose I had that. I thought Gegard Mousasi was going to win. I thought he was going to be able to stop those takedowns, and when he didn't, I suppose I kind of came out of it. And I think a lot of people kind of came out of it thinking, what happened there? Like, it's how did he kind of get caught in those situations? And I still think if there was a rematch again, I think he probably would win, but I don't think I have given, and maybe I did a little bit in podcast, but a lot of people haven't given enough credit, to Rafael Lovato Jr. He did those takedowns were just brilliant. He couldn't take Mousasi down against the cage, as a moth flies in front of me. At the start of the fight, he did a great job of getting inside, getting those little trips inside, pulling guard as well at one stage in the fight to get the fight to the ground. He did a great job of actually getting it there, and then. The judging, it was a very, very close one. I thought Lovato won by 1 round. I can see a 10-8. I think it was there was the 4th, I think, for Mousasi. On reflection, I can see a 10-8 in the 5th for Lovato Jr. And that's kind of one thing I think that's the biggest thing to come out of this fight. The 5th round in that fight, when we get to a 5th round and the fight is 2-2, let's say, and I think, a lot of people agreed it was 2-2. Sometimes you write off the 5th round and like that round. He took him down, and after like a minute and a half, he had taken him down. He'd been on the ground on top of him or with his back or whatever it was for a minute or 90 seconds or whatever it was. And you kind of say, oh, this round is over, this fight is over, Lovato Jr. has won. That's 10-9. Whereas there's been a couple of close rounds before. One judge might have given it to Lovato Jr., one judge might have given it to Mousasi. And that round, switching from a 10-8 to a 10-9, or a previous round doing the same, can have a big effect on fights. And I think that's kind of the one thing I brought out from that fight, from a judging standpoint and from a kind of a close fight standpoint in the 5th round of it. But overall, I think there's a couple of 10-8s. I wouldn't have given 10-8 in any of them, to be honest. I thought Lovato Jr. won the fight 3-2, but I think a draw was a fair result too. But a good fight overall. I think the rematch is one that needs to be made to see if it was Mousasi kind of having enough there, and if those looks that he got against Lovato Jr., that he could change things and improve and win the next day. So, I think the rematch makes a lot of sense.
And I think also the rematch makes sense because I think when this fight was put together, a lot of people didn't really watch it live because they see Gegard Mousasi, they don't know that much about Lovato outside of, the more hardcore fan base, and they don't really watch that fight. Now, when you make the rematch, everyone is going to want to see what Mousasi can do in this rematch. So I think that would be a good idea by Bellator. Now, quickly, Sean, before we get to your thoughts on the ESPN card this weekend, Colby Covington versus Robbie Lawler in August, and this is not a pay-per-view card. Were you surprised when you saw that this fight was put together by the UFC?
Oh, I was surprised, but I'm happy. I like this fight. Like, to me, I think it wasn't the start of this year, it was started the year before, and there was a few people throwing around this thing. Your hopes for the year, your New Year's resolutions for MMA, and I said at the time, my kind of New Year's resolution, and it's gone 2 years now or whatever, but it's to enjoy fights for fights. You know, don't care about belts. Don't care about all these. Let the fighters do that. You know, fighters should care about if he's having a belt or not. But if someone makes a good fight and it's going to be 5 rounds, it's going to be a main event, or it's going to be in a big spotlight, or you're going to be able to, watch that fight, I think you should not be happy about it always. But if a good fight like this is made, I don't want to complain about it. Like, I really like this fight. Colby Covington getting the title shot. He probably should be fighting Usman for the title. What's happening there? I don't know. Maybe they want to make that Askren fight. To me, and this is going to sound bad if you're a Colby Covington fan or Colby Covington, I have absolutely no interest in seeing Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman. Now, it's a fight that would be a good battle and everything like that. But do you really want to see that fight? Like, do you really want to see that fight? Like, do you want to see Colby Covington going in there and Robbie Lawler trying to stop his takedowns, and maybe Colby taking him down for 5 rounds and dominating him there, or maybe Robbie, keeping that fight standing and knocking him out? Like, that's the kind of interesting matchups that I really want to see. Now, I when I say I have no interest in seeing the Colby Usman fight, that's a bit, compared to this one, I have no interest in. It'd be a great battle. The wrestling battle would be good, but I just have an awful feeling that fight would turn into like a really, really shitty kickboxing match and some clinching in the middle of it. And we went from an era where we had like Robbie Lawler and Johnny Hendricks putting on kind of great fights for their era, and now we're coming to an era where like we have a lot of wrestlers at the top, but we need lads with like good takedown defense to make those wrestlers fights interesting, because we need to that thing where can he take him down, can he keep it standing, and that interests me an awful lot. I like those styles make fights. We heard it for years in boxing and MMA and all, and I way rather that style of fight, Robbie Lawler versus Colby Covington. So I'm happy.
But shouldn't it be on a pay-per-view though? Don't you feel like in this age where we're trying to build, like, nothing against UFC 240, fantastic pay-per-view, but a fight like that, for example, and a pay-per-view like that could make a big difference.
Is it a Fox card? Is it a Fox card it's on top of?
I don't think so, because they're not on Fox anymore.
ESPN, sorry, yeah.
I don't, you know what? I haven't checked, but I don't think it's a big ESPN card.
Is it not? Well, I suppose that is a bit surprising.
It's kind of surprising, though, right? Because they're trying to build these cards, Look, UFC 239, fantastic card. Some people are going, well, this and this and that. You've got cards coming up. It just feels like a no-brainer. It's such an exciting fight. But anyway, I think the fans win on that one. Mm-hmm. Let's look at the fights this weekend, though, because obviously Francis Ngannou was supposed to fight Junior Dos Santos on the UFC 239 card. That's going to happen earlier. That's going to happen this weekend. How do you see this fight going, Sean? Who are you backing here?
I think Francis Ngannou will win it, but it's a tough one. Like, watching just before we were kind of doing this here, I'm watching it last week as well, some of Francis's fights, and that Curtis Blades fight from I think it was November, December last year. Like, the way he hit him and he just like bludgeoned his head. It's like, no matter how good a fighter you are, no matter, if you're the best fighter in the world at your weight class, it doesn't matter. If he hits you, you're fucking staying hit and he's putting you away. And that's, I always talk about a puncher's chance in MMA. And I think a puncher's chance in MMA is a lot different than a puncher's chance in boxing, because it's more real. You have so many different weapons. If you just have a little bit of variation and can land that big punch when you need to land it, by putting someone off, by going for a takedown or hitting them with a leg kick or something like that, and then coming up with a big shot, it's a very, very good way of winning it. And Francis Ngannou has improved so much at landing those big shots. His jab to set up that right hand was absolutely brilliant. We remember the Alistair Overeem one. Cain Velasquez, was it the knee? Was it the shot? I think he hit him with a nice little shot inside. But Junior Dos Santos, like, to me, Junior Dos Santos has become a fighter who is happy to not look for the knockout as much as he used to. He used to go in there, we remember that early Verdum fight. We remember Cain Velasquez fight, the first one where he knocked him out with looking for the knockout. But now he's happy to jab up the body and go, land that big shot when he needs to land, or win a 5-round fight, or go late in the fight. Even like the Mark Hunt fight where he went kind of 3 rounds and ended it at the end of the third. But to me, doing that against Francis Ngannou is very dangerous, because you probably have at least 3 rounds there of him having that power and having to avoid it all the time, and he only has to land one. Now, Junior Dos Santos only has to land one as well. So that makes me think, like, what's the smartest game plan here for Junior Dos Santos. You know, could he go for a few takedowns? Maybe. I think that's actually something that probably will happen. But I have a feeling Junior Dos Santos could just come out here and go, fuck it, let's do it. Let's just exchange bombs here and let's see who's the first one to land. And I think that makes for an unbelievably good fight. And even if he doesn't do that straight off the bat, I think he'd be drawn into that. Because, you know, over his last few fights as well, he has done that game plan where he's trying to not win a decision, but trying to pick the shot and trying to win the rounds and everything like that. And then he's got hit with a few leg kicks over the last few fights, and I know Francis Ngannou will have seen that, and he'll be throwing a few leg kicks. And you know, at heavyweight, everyone's susceptible to those leg kicks, but especially Junior Dos Santos. And if he sees that and thinks, all right, this fight's kind of getting away from me, then I think the big shots will come. So at some stage, I think in the opening 2 or 3 rounds, we're going to see big exchanges here. And when I say 2 or 3 rounds, I probably mean like 1/1.5 rounds, because I think someone is definitely getting knocked out here. I can't wait for this fight. I think it's going to be absolute fireworks. I really do.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely crazy. And I mean, even if you look at JDS, his wins, he beat Tai Tuivasa, but that was a fight that arguably Tai was doing really well. And that Derek Lewis fight, man, that thing was like a chicken soup. Things were all over the place there. Bodies were flying left and right. So I'm curious to see where JDS is when he fights a guy like some great points made, Sean. But with that, guys, that is the end of the episode. A big thank you to Sean Sheehan. Sean, just quickly, what is coming up that people can check out? A lot of fun things. The Sean Sheehan Show, for example, something everybody needs to check out.
I haven't had one of them in a while now. I'll be bringing it back pretty soon, so that's on YouTube. But Patreon, there's a lot of good stuff there, and a few interviews as well. Ian Gary, if people don't know him, this guy, he's only 1-0, and he's an Irish guy coming through. Chris Fields, the former Cage Warriors champion, trains him. And this guy is the next guy coming through from Ireland. I'm telling you, trust me, I interviewed him this week. It's up on the Severe MMA YouTube. Check out that interview. I have the rewatch coming this Thursday. So I went back and watched Junior Santos versus Tai Tuivasa, the fight you just mentioned there.
That
was a really, really good fight. You can watch that. The Q&A was out there yesterday. What else have we? We've loads of other stuff. All the time we've State of the UFC address.
No submission radio invites, but that's okay. We'll blame the time difference.
When is this Adesanya Whitaker fight coming up? We'll have to do a special.
Right, you don't ask the questions here, okay? We're the ones. We have no idea.
I don't answer.
We just want to be the best guest too, all right, on this podcast that you mentioned.
Let's make
no one's having us as guests. That's the only sort of criteria we might be able to win it on. But guys, that is the end of the program. Big thanks to all of our guests. Next week we will be doing the UFC 239 preview show. So with that, enjoy the fights this weekend, and we will catch you then.